Hey guys, this is 101 R Smith, and today is a day that brings us full circle to where I almost began almost 8 years ago with the new version of the Arts Kai Tiuds figure. Now, as you guys know, I've been out of the action figure game for the last few years. The last couple of figures I bought were the Ace Toys Devil May Cry. I bought Dante, Neuro. I do have Virgil. He's in storage. I never opened him up because I had to move and stuff. So that was the last couple of figures. I was interested in the Arts Kai figures for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I was seeing them come out in real time, and I was noticing that the figures that I already have from Advent Children, specifically Cloud and Sephiroth, were not too dissimilar to each other. In fact, I felt that they were lesser than, especially the Sephiroth one. They got rid of the one wing, and I already had a remake Cloud when they first announced the game back in 2017, so it seemed a bit redundant to get version 2, and now I find out while I was missing in action there was a version 3, so those things were kind of like, I could kind of skip. But then I didn't find out until someone commented on my original Tidus that there was a brand new version for 2024, so I jumped in on it. As you guys know, Final Fantasy X is one of my favorite games ever. I played it back in my high school, college days. For me, as I said in the original review, that growing up, when I heard Final Fantasy, I just thought of 7. And it wasn't until spring of 2003, watching Monday Night Raw, that they're showing advertisements for Final Fantasy X-2. Like, wait, there's a X-2? So that was kind of like my intro to the bigger world of Final Fantasy. And 10 was just like the epitome of, I can't say my generation. I feel like for older millennials, they gravitate towards 7. Younger millennials gravitate to 10. I'm kind of right in the middle. I am a younger millennial at 30, but I love both. But 10 has a special place in my heart. To get a redo of a figure that, at the time, I thought it was good. But now looking at it, it kind of looks more like a low poly PS2 model than the remastered or the CGI model. So let's come back in the remix and see what we can have here. Opening up, and I have to say, to get a remaster of a figure, well, this is like technically the third Tidus figure if you account the original Play Arts. He's definitely bigger, more refined. The color is a lot more saturated than my original figure. The face definitely looks more humanoid. It looks less blocky. It looks less PS2 and more PS3, if you can catch my drift. They did a much better job incorporating his outfit, his asymmetry, the shoulder guards, the gauntlet on his arm, the pants. Everything is very similar in detail to the original Arts Kai, but with more detail, bigger, more thought put into it. And unlike the original, his chain is actually a real chain. His chains are real, they're not just molded in. Now, the pendant is glued onto his chest, but that's actual chain around his neck, so that was a cool detail they put in. His chain on his pants as well. And it takes everything from the original figure and just adds more detail and sizes him up a little bit. Wish I had the original, but that also is in storage, but from what I compare with video, it looks pretty great. So why don't we take a look at his articulation. Starting with the head, almost bobblehead. It's tight, but you can get 360 no problem. The arms are probably the biggest improvement from his original. They have multiple joints, from pivot points to ball sockets. The articulation on the arms is much improved, but you are going to have to work a little bit with his gauntlet arm a little bit. So the gauntlet arm you gotta be a little bit more patient with it. His normal arm works just as you expect. Double jointed, multiple swivel points on his bicep, 2 joints on his elbow, and the classic Play Arts Square Enix joints on the wrist. Chest, you're gonna get a lot to work with. However, you gotta be careful because he could kind of look like slanted awkwardly if you don't work with the joints together. So you're gonna get like 2 different joints on his upper torso and the mid torso going into his waist. Leg articulation, you're going to get the classic ratchet joints, however, obviously the pants with the longer leg is going to be more difficult to work with. But the articulation is there, it's just the outfit does not help, it impedes the articulation. His looser leg, you're going to get a beautiful double jointed knee, and you're going to get joints on his feet. So overall, articulation is a much bigger improvement to his 2013 Play Arts Kai. Accessories, not too shocking here. It's the same set from his original. First, you're going to get a blitz ball. It comes with a point where you can pull it out and stick it into the hand. And you can get some cool pose with the new Play Arts Kai base. I don't know, it's new to me. It's new to me, but apparently it's been around for a few years since the remake. I kind of like this better than the kind of hexagon base that we've had. I feel like it gives better display points. Now you're gonna get a rack of different hands for each, from holding to fists, and they give you kind of a rack, and I find that really one of the better improvements compared to like my older Play Arts Kai figures. Back in the day, this used to be just, you put them in a bag and hope you don't lose them. Now you can store them in one place. Still put them in a bag for storage, but it makes it a lot neater and a lot easier to decipher what you need. Tidus also comes with a face swap gimmick just like his original. However, the original gave him more like a calm face with his eyes closed, which in certain contexts can look a little sus. This time they just gave you a more expressive face for battle poses and action points that you want to put him in. I think this is definitely a better improvement. However, it did get a little better to pose, but I would never swap the face again. I just don't like swapping faces on my action figures. I like to keep them the same unless it's a whole new head mold. Finally, you're going to get Brotherhood, and this is the make or break for me. It is much bigger than the original Play Arts, much more detailed. I love the more darker saturated blue than the clear sky blue on the original. The size is great, the look is great. However, I don't like the way it's attached, so you have to pull the sword or the blade out of the scabbard, put them in a separate hand separately, and that's how Tidus holds Brotherhood. And I find that to be the weak point because often, at least with my figure, Brotherhood just kept falling out every time unless I put it on a downward position or I had something to support it. And that's very disappointing because the aesthetic for Brotherhood in this form is much better than his original. I rather have the old hand where you can stretch it out a little bit and put the sword, and the sword just being one piece, but I guess they figured for other people it would be better than it to be in one place, but it wasn't working. Final thoughts! This was almost the best Play Arts Kai figure I have ever had. The greatest one for me is Play Arts Kai Cloud Strife from the remake, and I have version 1. That was the best Play Arts Kai figure I ever had. From the articulation, the look, the weapon, everything about it was perfection. This was almost there. But Brotherhood not being able to stay and me having to finagle it in order to stay in place is the breaking point. If I had to give it a style ranking, this would be an A. It was so close to S, but this is an A because Brotherhood was the deal breaker for me. As I've always said, it would be nice if, just like with Ace Toys, they added an option set so you can get the Ultima weapons, but I don't see Square Enix doing that. They just don't do it. I know there's a Instagram guy out there who 3D printed the Ultima weapons for his figures, and he did a phenomenal job. Maybe it would be cool if you could commission him for that. But as it stands, this is still a great figure. This is a great improvement over Tidus. The look, the style, all the chains being real. A great figure. Maybe your copy, Brotherhood, wouldn't be as finicky and it just stays and works with you. You don't have to bend the arm a certain way for it to work, but that's just how my figure worked out for me. Maybe it could work out a little bit better for you. I still recommend that you get this figure. This is a grand improvement over the 2013 Play Arts Kai. I'm kind of happy I took a break because now I get to see how the line evolved. I'm definitely gonna get Yuna, and maybe I'll get Tifa and Aerith when I got some spare change on me. So that's it for this review. This is 101 R Smith, and I will see you later. Peace!